Hi, guys, and welcome to the Horror Room. Now, wait before you click away. The title was not clickbait. This movie, in some ways, was worse, and I'll explain why. Um, Now, obviously, you can read the subject is this movie that I heard about, which is supposedly worse than Serbian Film. Now, to a degree, yes, and to a degree, no. I'll give you my final thoughts on whether or not I think it is worse in terms of shock value, which is obviously the main purpose of most of these films that try to, I guess, reach those heights Serbian Film reached. Now, if you don't know about Serbian Film, I implore you, do some research. Definitely prepare yourself if this is a film you go after to watch because it is very upsetting, very controversial. You probably want to watch it alone. Don't watch it with your friends. You might lose those friends. They might be like, "What the fuck kind of sick shit are you into?" Um, but with that in mind, obviously, what we're going to be talking about, this contains lots of triggering topics, essay, lots of just terrible things. And I don't condone or endorse any of this stuff, of course. I own Serbian Film. Yes, that makes me slightly messed up in the head. But that's a video for another day. I do want to see the documentary. I'm curious what they have to say to justify a lot of that. But anyways, back to the movie at hand. We were talking about a movie called Trauma that was released in, I believe, 2017. And it's a Chilean, I think that's the term, movie. So obviously right away it's coming from a country that, at least to my knowledge, I haven't heard a lot about their film history. For all I know, they have a rich, diverse film history. Great. Awesome. Except for this movie. Here's a movie that literally starts off and it's super, super mean spirited. That's the nicest way to put it. I'm going to be doing my best to censor what I'm talking about. And if you're smart, you'll get it. And if not, then I guess look up the the synopsis of the movie and then you'll find out. Or if you're that curious, you can watch it yourself. This one still has some rough moments, not as many as Serbian Film, in my opinion. But it's definitely still one that I would advise you do your research. Be careful. Don't dive into the extreme side of horror if you're not ready for it. So let's begin. This is a R&R movie. If you don't know what that stands for, it stands for R word as in assault and revenge. It's one of those type movies. So is it as effective as movies like I Spit on Your Grave, Last House on the Left? Not really, in my opinion. And let's get into why. So first, the film starts off, and you see a pregnant woman, or at least she was pregnant. I don't know. She looks pregnant. She's strapped onto a table like a Thanksgiving turkey. That's the nicest way I can say it. This guy walks in, and he's questioning her. I just watched this movie, and I'm already getting foggy on some of the details because the story, what little story there was a little jumped around. But basically, they bring this woman's son in. They inject him with some sort of drug, and well, they do some mother-son bonding. Against the son's will, the guard's actually pushing him like he's shaking a vending machine trying to get a candy bar out. As a really bad analogy for what's going on. But anyways, so yeah, this is happening, and the son is like, being forced to do this horrible thing, and his mother's trying to tell him, don't fight back, just, let it happen. And then the guy shoots her in the back of the head. And the other guy the soldier's still making him do it. And the guy comes up to the soldier and pulls the soldier back, and when he does, her son, is still, he's still going. So yeah, it's really fucking gross, really disturbing. And then it cuts to the title. Then we are with a young lesbian couple, and it basically turns into a porn for like 5 minutes of watching them do their thing. Um, and you're like, okay, cool. There we go. There's your gratuitous sex scene. I hope you got your nut in while you can, because later on you're gonna not feel that nut so much. Um, so then these two are picked up by the sister, who ends up being the main character, and her daughter, and they're going on a trip somewhere. I don't remember. I don't think the plot really gave us too much of it. They end up going to this bar to ask for directions, and of course, everyone in the bar is, typical uh, creepy man. Like, they all start surrounding and, like, harassing these women for literally no reason. So they get the hell out of there, and then the police are like, oh, yeah, well, where you headed? And they tell them, and they're like, oh, well, better be careful, and blah, blah, blah. Here's my number, and he writes the number on the lady's arm. I think later she writes it on a different piece of paper or something. I don't know. It's just a weird, like, I guess they're making it like he's flirting with her. I don't know. So, anyways, while we're dealing with the scene of, the girls on their little fun road trip, singing their songs and stuff, we cut back to the kid from earlier, the one who got to know his mom. Hold on, let me get a drink. This is Sam Adams. Good beer. Don't want to mess with that Jason Universe Orchard stuff. No, I actually did look for it, and then I saw this, and I was like, Sam Adams. I'll stick with that. Um, doesn't taste like flannel. The beer was called like flannel weather. I don't get that flannel flavor. Anyways, so yeah, we cut back to the guy who doinked his mom. That's the nicest way I can say it. Um, and it's like a scene from the past where the guy who killed his mother is basically now in control of him, and his baby sister is in the room. Now, they don't show a baby, but you see a crib and you hear the baby sounds, and let's just say babies aren't gloves. You can't turn a baby into a glove. The baby does not fit. So yeah, after you get that little disturbing scene that kind of, I guess, establishes that now this guy is controlling this kid into doing these horrible acts. Then it cuts back to the family. Woo, we're laughing, haha. I did forget, when they leave the bar, they run into this little girl, and the younger sister, not the main sister, but the younger one, the lesbian couple. She gives her like these little finger puppets, and they say bye, and you're like, oh, that girl's gonna die probably. But she does come back into the story later on in a very dumb way. So the girls get to the house, and then the mother's daughter and the darker haired lesbian chick end up going off to look for something outside. And while they're out there, the lesbian with the dark hair, I don't know their names. I'm sorry if this is offending anyone. That's literally the characters they were given. They're lesbians, and they cry and scream a lot. That's what I'm working with. So, they go out there, and she starts seducing the little, well, not the little girl, but like the mother's daughter. She's like got to be in her teens, like college. I don't know, something like that. But it's still like, oh man, you're here with her, and you're hitting on her niece basically. And the mother does see them together, and she's like pissed because she doesn't trust this girl anyways. So they get back in the house. Then you find out that the guy, I think his name, try and remember his damn name. I don't remember. But basically, the kid that grew up after doing the shuffle with his mom, him and his son, he has a son now. And I think they imply that later, him and his sister grew up and had a kid together. Ugh. And this son, he looks like one of the typical people you'd see in this type of movie. The main guy, though, he's got a scar on his face from where he was slashed. I don't know. He looks like more of an action movie type. And this movie does get into some action movie territory later on, which we'll get to. But anyways, these two show up as the black-haired lesbian chick is doing a topless dance in front of her girlfriend's niece, and the girlfriend's sister, the niece's mom. Okay, I guess. And nobody's like, oh, you shouldn't do this. It's not appropriate. Uh, it just happens. And then, of course, these two lunatics bust in, and he's like, hey, you should keep dancing, and, we're going to have a good time. And the one guy's like singing a church song, and the other guy is like, threatening the girls. Needless to say, the black haired chick does not cooperate, and that forces them to take her girlfriend and her girlfriend's niece to the floor, and it gets very, very uncomfortable, very graphic. Now, it was probably one of the quickest assault scenes I've ever seen in one of these movies. Um, but it's very jarring, and it's definitely not comfortable. Um, so it's very effective, but they don't linger on it, which I gotta say, that's probably the only part of the movie that I was like, okay, I thought this was going to be a little more gratuitous, but I think that's honestly the only assault scene other than, the previous ones. And it is pretty jarring, pretty powerful. So I can say after that point, it does get a lot tamer in terms of stuff like that. Um, so yeah, we get through that scene, and obviously everyone's fucked up, broken. Later on, the main guy is talking to the niece, and he's like, "Do you want to kill me?" And he puts a gun on the table, and he says, "Go ahead." And then they just literally go to sleep on these people's couch. Like they're tied up, but they get loose. The niece gets loose. She picks up the gun, and she like is trying to shoot them, and there's no bullets, and she sits there, just keeps trying. Then she grabs like her keys and her clothes, and she leaves the other ones tied up. By the way, like okay, but she's like not in a rush to get out of there, which is kind of weird because it's like bright as hell. It's probably like the middle of the day, so these guys could wake up at any moment. She stops on the way out the door to look in the mirror at herself, and she's like all busted up and bloody, um, and she points the gun at the mirror, pretending she's shooting herself, and it's clicking. And then she looks like she's pointing it out the door and shooting, like around. I don't know. Like, what is that supposed to mean? Hold on. But then she puts the gun in her mouth, like she's going to pretend to sewer slide herself. And when she pulls the trigger, her head explodes. And you're like, what kind of revolver has this many empty bullet chambers? No, no, no. From behind her, dude woke up and shot her. So, good timing? Coincidence, I guess? Maybe he thought, haha, that's a funny joke. And then literally after this, they literally just leave. They walk away and walk out of the house and walk down the road. And you're like, okay, I guess. So these women get loose. They cover up the daughter, and they head back into town. They're looking for the cops. They find these cops, and they're like, hey. And they come back, and they're like, oh, shit, well, we think we know who did this. We're going to go get this guy. Which, it sounds like one of the cops is like, oh, you don't know what this guy is capable of. We don't want to mess with him. And it's like, you're police. You have guns, for one. Two, you can call for backup. You can say, hey, there's a guy that's murdered and assaulted somebody. We should probably get some backup out here. Like, send in the whole SWAT team if you gotta. I know there's only two of them, but still, you don't know. Maybe there's more. But they don't do that, of course. Then they start like, we're gonna go find him. They get into town, and one of the villagers is like freaking out, and they're like, hey, what's wrong? And he's like, he's got my daughter. He took my daughter. And of course, it's the little girl from earlier. So you're like, oh, great, this is not going to end well. So they go into the bar. Apparently, the guy hasn't left the bar. He's just chilling. He's just sitting in a chair. And they all come in, all four. The two cops, the guy who's like upset about his daughter, and his brother. I think it's his brother. They come in there, all each have a pistol, a gun, pointed at this dude. And the one guy goes and he's like, I'm going to arrest you now. And he puts the handcuffs on him. And he's like, hey, you should never take your eyes off your opponent. And has a knife and stabs the dude up through his chin. And then somehow he takes out the other three armed men who are shooting at him, by the way, but missing horrendously. He takes a knife out of the cop, he throws it at another guy. I think he takes the cop's gun that he killed and shoots one of the other men, or both of them. Um, and then he takes a machete to one of them and hacks them up. Now, some of the gore, I think there's a part where he slits the guy that he stabbed, he slits his throat open. Or maybe that, I think that's later in the movie. The gore is pretty good. Um, it would be a lot better if it was in a different movie. It kind of feels out of place. Now, Serbian Film is pretty gory and over the top, but I don't know. I think it serves the narrative a little more, if that makes sense. If you've seen Serbian Film, you know the beheading scene. It kind of plays into the story and what happens to the main character later on in the movie. Here, it's just like, oh, this guy's super dangerous, but uh, I guess he can take out armed policemen without a second thought, without any kind of struggle. So it kind of seems a little unfair. Meanwhile, these girls that have just been attacked are sitting in the back of the police car, trapped. They hear all this gunfire, so like, we got to get out of here. But of course, the guy comes out. He has the little girl slung over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. Um, and again, these girls are sitting in the back of this car, helpless. He just takes the little girl, takes his little brother, or his son, and they walk down the road. And you're like, bro, this is the second time you've done this. This time, people with guns were after you. Like, what are you doing? You should take everybody out. You should take these girls with you. They're obviously going to cause problems. And they do. They get out of the car. They go in. One of the police guys is not dead. He's been shot, but the bullet went through him. And the girl's like a vet or a nurse or something, and she fixes him up. And he's like, hey, we should seriously go get backup. Which is the smartest thing to do because they went in there, they tried their stupid plan, and it did not work. But, oh no, now the sister, she's like, we can't leave that little girl. We have to go get her. And it's like, for one, you could, but she's probably dead or already been assaulted or something, and it'd probably be better to get more people with more guns, formulate strategy, a plan. Is that something you guys don't know about over there? Maybe I'm a little too harsh. It is just a movie, but it's very frustrating because these tropes, especially in this type of movie, are like, like the best thing I can compare it to is I Spit on Your Grave 2, the sequel to the remake. This girl escapes so many times only to get recaptured, and it's very frustrating. It's almost comical at times. But here, they have a clear chance to get away, to bring help, and they don't take it. And they're like, yeah, let's go save the little girl. And their big plan when they get there, it's like this factory, brick house, whatever. The main sister, says to her sister's girlfriend, like, hey, take your top off and go seduce them. What? Like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. She was assaulted. Um, but they send her in there, and she's like, hey, I want to feel what a real man feels like. And this guy's like, kind of getting into it. Um, but like, he has his knife out, and then the sister comes up, knocks him with a pipe. There's a big scuffle, but she ends up, smacking him a few good times. They tie him up. And you're like, hey, finally, wow. One of the guys is out of the equation. Good. So then, instead of saying, all right, we got this one, now we can all gang up on the main guy and kill him, or we can go get backup, they say, oh, let's try to trade him for the little girl. These people are not very bright. This is obviously the worst situation. This guy probably would sacrifice his own son. Now, what happens is it ends up backfiring. Obviously, he has a weapon, and he ends up getting them. And the guy, he gets his brother like untied, and this is where it's a little confusing, and I'm trying to remember exactly what happens. But somehow the brother ends up chasing down one of the girls, and they corner him, and they actually kill him. And then when they're trying to get away, I think he shoots he shoots the black haired girl, I think. Pretty sure he shoots her or stabs her or something like that. So she's dead. So the sisters, the grown sisters, are on the run. Uh, there's also a flashback to when the main guy, the assaulter guy, was younger. Uh, and like he kills, it looks like some army people that are coming to take this guy out in his operation. And he acts like he's like, oh, and they're like, oh, don't worry, we're going to get you out of here. And then he kills one of the guys. I guess it's to establish that like all the stuff that he's been through has changed him so much that he's going to start committing these horrible acts because the guy who had control of him gets killed during the gunfire, but you know, he's like, "Hey, cool. I can do what I want now and I can assault my sister." Yay, I guess winning. I also heard that this movie has some more political ties like Serbian Film did. And then I heard that they were a little more blatant. Maybe there's something to do with that scene. I'm not too familiar with the history. Maybe I should have looked it up, but honestly, this film did not give me a reason to want to research, do any historical findings. So I guess it didn't work. Sorry, guys. Hold on. So back to the scene. The two sisters are hiding. They're in like an empty room with the pillars and shit, and they're having like a gunfight. I think with this guy. I literally just watched this morning. um, in any case, I think she ends up beating the main sister. Her sister gets killed, of course. I think she gets stabbed or shot or something, but she's dead. So she's like the only one left. She ends up turning the tables on this guy. Uh, I want to say she like beats his face in. I don't remember. See, that's not a good sign. I literally just watched this movie and I can't remember your climactic ending, the revenge, the whole point of the movie. I could tell you what happened at the end of Last House on the Left. I Spit on Your Grave, even Serbian Film. But I literally just watched this today and I could not remember how they beat the bad guy. But I do remember at the end, the sister finds his sister and she's like, hey, don't be afraid. And you're like, okay, are they going to say that the sister is going to start doing all the abusive stuff because she was put through it? Thankfully, the movie does not go that route because if they would have, I would have been like, okay, this movie's sending a terrible message that, you know, if you've been through any kind of trauma that you can't lead a normal life, you're going to just hurt people. And that's a really stupid message to send in this type of movie. Um, and then they find the little girl, and it looks like she's fine. She's, you know, fully clothed. She's not beaten up. Doesn't even look like they tied her up. She's sitting, standing in this room. And they're like, let's get you out of here. Now something happens, and the main lady, the sister, I think she dies. I think it's because her sister got killed, and she just doesn't want to go on. Again, I just watched this morning and I cannot remember what happened to her, but she's gone. So it's now the assaulter guy's sister and this little girl, and I shit you not, they basically hold hands and skip off into the sunset through a field of flowers. Like, they don't literally skip, but they might as fucking well have. The ending is just so bizarre, and I guess it's like, yay, some people got out of there, but it's like, at what cost? Like, are we supposed to assume that this damaged person who's been through this stuff is going to take care of this little girl? Because her dad's dead, you know? He got fucking killed. I don't know. It just literally, at the end of this movie, now granted, it had a happier ending, technically, than Serbian Film. Serbian Film definitely leaves you, like, feeling dirty, feeling sad, like, oh my god, that was horrible. But in terms of the story and how it developed and how the characters played in that movie, it was a little easier to follow and to understand what they were going for. And in that movie, you know, the circumstances that happen are tragic, but they're against the control of our main character. And I guess in the same way in Trauma, the main character being the mother and the sister, none of this is her fault that it happened, but the way they portray the victims, like this guy who was forced to do these things to his mother, just becomes this horrible human being, and they never show any signs that maybe there's still some humanity in him. Which I guess you don't want to sympathize with your assault guy in the movie. That'd be kind of weird. But yeah, it just was not a very good movie. I would definitely say it does not surpass Serbian Film. It definitely has some rough moments, and those moments are pretty few and far between. But honestly, I think like the beginning part, the baby part, even though you don't see anything, it's kind of the sounds and the visual of him like looking at the aftermath on his hand. Ugh. And then the whole assault scene with the girls and the guys. Those are the roughest parts. Everything after that just kind of felt like a stock thriller action movie with like some mild sexual stuff going on, like kind of veering into that territory again, but it doesn't fully go there. Yeah, I gotta say, it's not like I'm saying, hey, I wish this movie was all assaults all the way, no story. Um, but just some of the elements in the story were not very believable. Like, why would you not go get backup, even if they're like, well, we don't have any police here. Let's go to a different town. Let's go. Better yet, let's go to a different country. Um, and I guess the little girl being the only reason that they went back. Um, like, I don't know. Maybe I'm heartless, but I would have been like, hey, you know what? The best way we can help her is to get some more motherfuckers, because this guy obviously took out a bunch of y'all by himself. Well, the brother did, or the son did come in later and shoot someone. And also, by the way, I forgot to mention this. After the whole scene with the girls in the house, right before they go to bed, the father and son kiss. Not like a father and son should. It's almost like they're about to start full on dry grinding each other. And I'm like, what the flying fuck? Oh, actually, it's his son. It's his son, not his brother. It's his son. So, again, they're perpetrating that this guy who's been through this horrible shit is doing it to his own family now. Wow. Yeah, I would not recommend this movie. Like, even if you're into the extreme movies, this is one that I'd say, like, if you watch it once, that's it. You'd probably be okay to just be like, all right, I've seen it. I definitely wouldn't recommend owning it. It's definitely on the schlockier side. It's not very entertaining. And if the only reason you're watching it is to watch the terrible scenes, then, I guess you're going to get something out of that. But if you don't want a story. So, yeah, guys, there you have it. Serbian Film is still on top. Yay, for whatever that's worth. Now, they do have a documentary coming out. And like I said, I'm very interested in watching that. It might be out by the time this video is out. But I do plan on watching that and kind of giving a review and some insight into what they're saying about the filming and the political message, quote unquote. But yeah. So there you have it. There's my review of Trauma. Not Trauma. Trauma's great. Not Trauma. If you want to lessen the trauma, get some Sam Adams while you watch it. At least then you'll have some good taste in your mouth and not all the horrible things they do. But thanks for watching, guys. I know this was a bit of a long one, bit of a rough one, too. So if you stuck around and watched, I do appreciate it. Like I said, these movies aren't for everyone, so just be careful. And if you don't want to watch them, don't feel like you have to. I'm just one of those crazy horror fans who's seen way too much, so I figured, hey, why not? Let me spend my Saturday morning watching this. And I definitely regret it. I could have watched something a million times better. So, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next week.